Hi there, today we've had quite an interesting project come in. It's a lot of parts of a rare car, a 1950 Allard P1. Look at the size of this grille, it is absolutely huge, and we've got to do it in one piece because it doesn't come apart. There's repairs are going to need doing on it. This has got some dents in it. Some of it is quite rusty, and also the bumpers aren't exactly straight. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but this isn't very straight. So we've got all these problems to sort out. You may be able to see there's some dents in there, and there's splits. There we go, camera's focused now. There's some splits here. So all in all, quite an interesting and challenging project. As always, the first thing that we do with any job that's booked in, we photograph it, then we list it all out so the customer knows what they're dealing with before we start, and all that gets printed off and it's sent around the workshop with the job. First thing we've got to do with any project is we've got to get it all back to bare metal and rust free. This grille's made of brass, but it's got a big steel plate on the back that's rusty, so we're going to have to de-rust that. And also there's some paint on the back. We didn't film it going into the hot caustic, but this is it coming out, and that's removed the paint that was on the back of the grille, because any paint, grease and dirt stops it stripping. It's now going into the hydrochloric acid, and that's to remove the rust from that steel plate. Now it's been in there long enough to remove the rust. Out it comes, and you can see that plate is now rust free. Now it's in the stripper tank, and once the stripping's finished, which it is now, you take that out and you see it's back to the bare brass. That's now going to be ready for us to polish up. We've got to do that with all of the parts that are brought in, get them back to bare clean metal, and that way we can carry on to the next process, which is normally polishing. Now we're on to the first of the polishing processes on this bumper. The first process we term cutting out, and what we've got to do is we've got to get all of the marks out, corrosion marks, and from then we can carry on polishing it up to a shine. However, with these bumpers, they've got quite a lot of repairs need doing. There you can see, can't remove marks without removing metal. Nice bit of slow-mo on the sparks. But on these, we're not actually going to try and remove every bit on this first one, this first operation. In this instance, it's just a clean-up, and that's because these need quite a lot of metalwork repairs, and we don't want to remove too much. We want to leave plenty of metal for our repair guy to take all these dents out. As you can see, lots of dents, etc. There's no easy way to remove these dents. It's just knowing where to hit it with a hammer. This is all a bit of a black art to me, because this isn't something that we take out minor dents ourselves, but then we pass it on to our friend to remove the more difficult stuff. He always tells me that the metal is sort of like a fluid, and he just gets it to move in different ways until it's back to where he wants it to be. I always notice how he doesn't hit it straight on. The hammer blows are always slightly to the side, and there's always constant checking. Then there's a little bit more work carried out, and then checking again. After he's finished with the hammer work, then he'll go over it with an abrasive disc to remove his hammer marks, I think this knocks off any tiny little hot spot, any tiny little high spots. And putting these marks in doesn't matter because we've got to polish it again anyway. That one's finished. Other parts we had to repair were overriders with various dents and holes, and grille pieces with splits and dents. Now these overriders, we're going to have to heavy copper these because we've not been able to polish them up to a mirror finish due to them being a bit thin or needing repairs. So here they're being cleaned electrically. Now after that's done, we're going to give them a good swill and we're going to put them in the cyanide copper tank. Now the cyanide copper is a little bit of a protective coating because we're going to build them up using acid copper. Here they are going into the cyanide copper, there they'll be for a few minutes. When they go into the acid copper, that's the copper that actually puts quite a thick deposit on as far as plating goes. And then here we go, out of the cyanide copper now, being swilled and into the acid copper. They'll be cooking in there for a couple of hours to put a nice thick deposit on so we can do more work to them. While those overriders are plating away in the acid copper, we're going to carry on with the polishing of this bumper. Now we did most of the initial cutting out that you saw earlier. Now what we've got to do, all the rest of the polishing now, is us working through progressively finer grades to remove the marks that we already put in last time. Just working through finer and finer abrasives. We probably started off with an 80 grit on these belts, so we'd have gone through 80, 120, 180, 240, 320, then there'll be a 320 glaze, and then it's ready for the final operation, which is brushing to make it a mirror finish. We're still working our way through the grades here. This is a very time consuming process, and it's also very easy to mess up. We've worked out that linishing head is going, the actual speed it's travelling is around 90 miles per hour on the actual belt surface. So it's going around at quite a rate. Now, all of the abrasive work's finished now. And now it's got to be brushed up. Now, this actually, because it's steel, you actually have to put quite a lot of physical effort into brushing this up. You can see how the polisher's really leaning on it. You have to lean on it to get it right. This is why if it's too thin, you won't be able to do these last processes because you'll start to distort and things will start to collapse and put dents in things. The whole of the polishing from start to finish, there's lots and lots of ways how it can go wrong. In order to do the work we do, you've got to have a lot of finesse and sympathy for the parts that you're working on, because if you can't work with them, then you're going to end up causing a lot of damage. And you know, this is valuable stuff. It's not like you can nip down Halfords and get a replacement, so just have to keep going over it and over it until you're satisfied that you've got exactly the finish that you need. Because contrary to popular belief, chrome plating doesn't hide any marks at all. What it'll do, it will highlight any defects that you've left in it. So this has got to be polished to the highest standard. If it's not polished to the highest standard, the results are never going to be good. There we go. There's the bumper finished, ready to go into the plating shop. Before we put the bumper in, we're going to take these overriders out of the acid copper and we're going to mop these up so these are ready for plating as well. There they go, out of the acid copper. Just got to give these a good rinse off. And they'll be ready for us to mop up. So we'll now unwire these then it's into the polishing shop. We've already gone over them with a really fine abrasive. That's just in case there's any tiny little specks in the plating or anything like that. And there we go, these are being mopped up. Now because it's on top of, because we're mopping copper up, that's far softer than the steel that you saw being brushed up earlier. There we go, taking a little tiny mark out that he's found. Because it's far softer, you don't have to put lots and lots of pressure on to get it to mop up. That's one of the reasons why you use copper as sort of almost a filler coat. And also the other reason is because it actually plates quite quickly, and it's more economical than using nickel, which would be much harder to polish, so that's harder than steel. So here we are, getting mopped up, nearly done. There we go, they're now ready for plating. What we're doing here is we're soldering some tags onto the end of the bumpers. This is so that we can plate them. The reason is there's no brackets on the back of these bumpers, so we've got nowhere to wire to. You can't wrap a wire around the bumper because it will leave a big mark. So we've soldered some copper wires to the end. Now we can wire to these tags. So it's wired up on copper wire. Now we're going in for cleaning. It's just basically hot soapy water. Now we're going to give it a wipe over with a cloth just to make sure that every speck of dirt, grease, polishing composition, anything like that is all removed. Plating is all about cleanliness. Now it's going in the electric cleaner now. What this does is we pass a current through it and it removes any oxides from the surface of the metal. Because if it's slightly oxidised, which is what we call passive, then it's not going to accept the plating properly. It will look like it plates alright, but it won't adhere. So we have to blast those oxides off by passing a current through it, and now the metal is what we call active. So now it's been activated, it's through a rinse system. We're just rinsing off the soapy solutions and the activation solution. Now this very last one that we're just going into is a very dilute sulfuric acid. It's a bit like vinegar. And back into the clean water. And then we're going to go straight into the nickel tank. Now the nickel is the most important part of the plating process, because it's the nickel plating that gives it's good weather resistance and it's good looks. So this is all important, that this nickel plating's got to be applied correctly. While that bumper's plating, we're going to start polishing this grille. Now first off is the cutting out phase, where we're going to use abrasives and remove any corrosion marks from damage, anything like that. Now this grille is not an easy thing to polish at all, as you can see. It's quite an awkward shape. Can't go at it like a bull in a china shop. It's just gently. So because this is brass, it's not going to have heavy corrosion marks. This is probably something like a 180 belt to start off with, and then we'll work through finer abrasives until we get it all sorted out. Gently touching the tops of all those veins. Really awkward shape. There we go, just touching the edges in. As you can appreciate, with the speed that goes around, you've got to be really careful. You don't want to catch anything, else you'll end up hurting yourself and damaging the workpiece as well. What's happening now is he's been over it with an Aluminium belt, and this is a mop that's been dressed up with a greaseless polishing compound. So you get this in various grades, the same as you do. You just dress this tool up, but it's more flexible than a belt, so you can get down the side of the veins and do more more delicate stuff. Now that the sateen process, which is the one that you've just seen, now we're actually on to putting the shine on it. Now this is done using a polishing mop with polishing compounds. So as you can see, it's trying to get as far down the side of the veins here as you can. You've got to be really methodical in working this. Keep going over, gently, gently. You can see from how the grille's shining now, this is nearly finished. So just a final check. Make sure everything's right. You have to wipe it over to wipe any polishing compound off so you can see what you're doing. There we go, ready for plating. Now it's time for the bumper to come out of the nickel and into the chrome. It's been in there for a good hour to get a nice coating on it. Now we're going to go through the same rinse system again. Just going into the clean water now, and from there we'll be going straight into the chrome. Now it won't be in the chrome tank for very long because the chrome layer is just a flash of plating over the nickel. It does change the colour, but the actual main reason for it is, although the nickel gives it all the good looks and the weather protection, it tarnishes like brass. So if we didn't put this layer of chrome on, you would have to polish your bumpers every week to keep them looking nice, and nobody's got time for that. They discovered that in about 1930, if you put a thin layer of chrome on top of the nickel, then you don't have to polish your bumpers, you just have to keep them clean. So we've come out of the chrome, and we're just going to give this a rinse. Then we go into a solution that neutralises the chromic acid. Now you can see that yellow chrome colour being washed off. And a final rinse. We can handle the bumper now because it is finished. Now we're getting on to plating the grille, so we're wiring this up on copper wires as usual so we can pass an electrical current through it. Now we're going to get off into the cleaner tank as we have done before, and a good clean. As always, when it comes to plating, cleanliness is really important. Into the electric cleaner so we can reactivate the metal so that it will plate properly. Now we come in out of the electric cleaner, through the rinse system. Through that mild acid solution. Lastly, into the clean water for the last time, and then into the nickel tank. Putting it there, we've moved the bags aside because we can't have anything touching the anode bags, or else it's going to create a big problem and we'll have to strip it and start again. So an hour or so's passed by again, and we come in out of the nickel. There you can see the shine and all the good looks that we want. All we've got to do now is give it a good rinse as usual. Then this one's going in the chrome to finish it off. Here we go, into the chrome. If you do like the videos that we do, please remember to subscribe to our channel, and if you hit that notification bell, then it will keep you updated when we release a new video, so you can see more parts being restored. And there we come out of the chrome tank. It's been in there about 4 minutes. Like we said before, it really isn't in there for a long time. If you put too much chrome on, there's no advantage. It just ends up as what we call a chrome burn. And you get an area that goes grey that you have to polish off. So there's all the overriders coming out. Job's all coming together now, all nearly finished. There we go, the overriders, and you can see those sort of grille extension pieces as well. Now everything we do has to be wiped down and inspected, because until you wipe it over you don't know if it's up to the standard that it needs to be. If there's any defects you've got to be able to see them. So there we go, being wiped down. At this point we also check off all the parts against the pictures where it came in and make sure everything's there. Now that's what I was talking about, a chrome burn. See where it's grey on the edge? It's because the tips of things will want to pull more plating, so we need to polish that bit off the end. So that's what's happening here. We're chrome mopping it and we're taking that off. The Allard job is all complete now. Everything's ready to go out to the customer. The only thing we've got left to do is to wrap it up. But let's take a look. Bumpers all straight again. Overriders with the dents taken out of them. And that grille is just huge. It actually looks smaller on the screen than it does in real life. All the little bits and pieces. There we go, these have no longer got any splits in them. I don't know where the splits were now, they've all been fixed. Door frames, a job well done.